Jai Janendra and hello. Warm welcome to all the audience to the 207th session of Jain Talks. My name is Vidit Baya and I'll be the moderator for today's session. I am a research associate at Raisina House, a foreign policy think tank based in New Delhi. I've previously been a journalist for Republic TV covering global politics. Today, we'll try and understand generative AI in the context of India and Jainism. In an era which is defined by technological advancements, it is imperative to explore the implications of artificial intelligence within cultural and philosophical frameworks. We're truly honored to have Dr. Siddhartha Dalal join us from New York. Professor Dalal, Jai Janendra and hello. Before we get started, let me introduce our speaker. Dr. Dalal is an expert in artificial intelligence and statistics and a professor at Columbia University. Through his passion for mountaineering, he conquers not only data peaks, but also literal ones. In addition to his groundbreaking work in academia and industry, Dr. Dalal finds joy in running half marathons, showcasing his adventurous spirit in and out of the realm of statistics and AI. His commitment to advancing Jainism is exemplified by his establishment of the Alka Siddhartha Dalal Endowed Postdoctoral Fellowship in Jainism at Rutgers University, fostering in-depth teaching and research on Jainism. His career is marked by leadership roles at AIG, RAND, and Xerox, and he has seen significant contributions to risk analysis and AI applications. His impressive portfolio boasts over 125 publications and patents, including groundbreaking work in medical informatics. Recognized by esteemed organizations like IEEE, ASA, and ASQ, Dr. Dalal also advises the US Army on technology. A big thank you to all our wonderful attendees for joining us today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask at the end of the session or drop them in the chat box. Without further ado, let us delve into the fascinating intersection of artificial intelligence, India, and Jainism with Dr. Dalal's insight. Professor Dalal.
Good evening. Just 1 second. Let me just get my screen here. Can you all see my screen just to make sure?
Yes.
We can.
Yes. Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. So far away, but so near, thanks to our modern technology. And I really appreciate it very much. And I am amazed by all the work which you all have been doing in terms of background, and just amazing to see all these people you are already here on this particular session. I just am going to talk about artificial general intelligence. Generative AI is a part of it. And especially India being my Janmabhoomi, there is this big revolution going on in artificial general intelligence. How can it be applied in a meaningful manner in Bharat context? That's one of the important things. And another really very important thing has been about Jainism. Today, in today's world, violence is exceeding at such a pace that it's just very unfortunate. And Jainism has so much to tell us and teach us about nonviolence, anekantvad, and aparigraha. And that can actually solve lots of problems in the world here itself. And one of the things which I have been very much involved in last 5 years has been trying to let others know more about Jain principles. And as a part of it, I've been involved in some number of academic communities, including starting chair at Rutgers and various other places. I've been involved in terms of basically getting the message of Jainism across. So that's why this talk is concentrated on those parts. So let me just give you a little bit of outline of my talk here itself. I'm not sure how many of you necessarily know about artificial general intelligence. So I'll talk a little bit about it, introduce you to it. And then I'll talk about Indian edge. How can India get an edge in all of these things? And then I will talk about applications which I have been personally involved in, which is related to saving human lives. That includes construction and disaster recovery. And then I'm also going to talk about Jainism, basically capturing wisdom from ancient knowledge and ancient languages. And that includes translation of our original agams and related ancient messages coming, and also how do we get that to the next generation has been a challenge. So developing not only translations, but also having some sort of question and answer system is what is something I've been greatly involved in. So without further ado, let me start with uh, what is general intelligence. So let's just talk about what is general intelligence here itself. So really, general intelligence has more to do with what human beings can do. So here is a sort of a picture of a little boy who is going through his comic books and seeing the picture of chicken and so on. And in no time, he learns not only that this is the picture of a chicken here, but more importantly, he will be able to see all of these different types of chicken, different ways placed around and so on, and automatically identify that these are same ones. These are uh, same. They're nothing but a different versions of the same bird. So that is sort of very interesting in terms of way of thinking about general intelligence itself. And much of that has to do with really our brain in terms of cerebrum, which is above here, and cerebellum, which is here, and spinal cord, which has something like 100 billion neurons. And those neurons play a critical role in artificial intelligence. So let me continue here in terms of we talked about what is general intelligence. How about artificial general intelligence? What do we mean like by that? So here is a question which has been which was posed long time back, almost in 1940s, to Alan Turing, who is counted as a father of artificial intelligence. And he was asked, "Can machine think like a human?" And he said that cannot be answered in any fashion. We cannot do that. But what we can do is to think about, can machine fool a human? So that's a question which is easy to answer. And the way he developed an idea was what is known as Turing test. And Turing test is very interesting way of thinking about it. So here are two rooms where there is a human being here, and there is a supposedly artificial uh, computer which is able to answer in some meaningful manner. And here is a human judge who can ask questions to both of them, but he does not know who is behind each of these curtains. These are the curtains here, and who is behind these curtains. So the question which Turing suggested as a Turing test is that after human being interacting with all of both of this uh, behind the curtain uh, places, can he decide or can she decide which is human being and which is not human being? And if machines can reach to the stage where they are cannot be distinguished, then in that case, we would call them as really nothing but artificial general intelligence. So that was the basic idea. And obviously, if you're going to think about all of that, then in that particular case, you will have to think about what are the capabilities which you would need, language understanding clearly, knowledge storage. You will have to keep all the information and somewhere along store whatever you see, just like that child who is able to see this picture and being able to retain it even after 6 months. Oh, that looks like a chicken. It has to have some sort of automated reasoning that, oh, this is just a picture which has been changed in some manner. It has been rotated upside down. And current system of AI were not able to deal with it. And that's where some of the new things which have been done here. There is obviously part of it. Human beings are always making some decisions all the time. What to eat, what to do, what kind of things I want to study, what kind of job I want to do. So those decision making is usually done by some sort of patterns from past knowledge. And so that's a part of it. And obviously vision to perceive objects, vision, speech, and ability to move and so on and so forth, all part of it. So we think this should be very simple. So let me pose here an interesting thing here. So here is a sort of an interesting thing you will see here. Just 1 second. Let me just, here. So here is a sort of uh, here is a sort of transcript of a system called ELIZA, which was named after Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady. Perhaps some of you might have read Pygmalion by Bernard Shaw and so on. And I just want to I just want to mention to you a little bit about that. Here is Eliza is a psychotherapist and a human being is interacting. This is a real transcript of a human being interacting. And human says, the Eliza introduces herself and human says, I'm unhappy. And then Eliza says, are you unhappy often? Human says, yes. Can you elaborate on that? And so on and so forth. So human is interacting with this psychotherapist on the computer. Now, does this look like general intelligence? It turns out it's actually not. It turns out that this is nothing but basically taking the question which are there here, too much work, then converting these answers to question. Why do you say too much work? And then he said, unhappy, I'm unhappy. Earlier you said about you felt unhappy. So this is not really, if you ask any other kind of question, she'll not be able to answer. It turned out that Eliza became very famous, and actually it was just on a computer, but people made even marriage proposals to her. So just to let you know about that. So let me go further here. So let's think about now, what is this new revolution of artificial general intelligence is there? It's created by what are known as generative models. So I want to just explain to you a little bit about what are the generative models here itself. So what we have is a machine and we put some sort of context. So I might put a word I, and then it will choose some other word. So it will give an outcome which we would call as I chose here. And then, so this I chose come there, and then automatically it will generate that. And then I chose that comes here, and then it will generate bank. And I chose that bank, and then it will say for what? And then I chose that bank for maybe stability, maybe for convenience, maybe for some other reasons. So you can imagine that how does this work? Is it goes through each of the word and then tries to predict each word. Words are called tokens here. And that's the way the whole system works. And these are called context here. And this was my original prompt, and these are nothing but context here. Now, so this is sort of, if you look at in terms of variety of places, you will see autocomplete. You start writing something and it would add a word or something. So it's somewhat similar to autocomplete, but it's far more than that. Here we have just window with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tokens or 5 words here. You can have up to 1,000,000 words. So it remembers records of all types. Whatever you said 20 days back, it still remembers. It's all in the storage. So you can put a whole book in there and it will be able to remember it, and it will be able to do that. So context window can be up to 1,000,000 tokens here itself. It's trained on a huge amount of data coming from internet, coming from all over, all the newspapers in the world, all things which are available anywhere, and that's what it is. So it's a 1 petabyte of data has been used in some of this training set. What is 1 petabyte? 1 petabyte is 10 to the power 15, a trillion, uh, 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 not a trillion, but 1,000 trillion potential data has been used in this regard. And it has got something like 13 trillion tokens of various types here itself. It works on images. So images are also, we just go pixel by pixel, and it will predict next pixel, or it will generate next pixel, next pixel. So if I were to say a picture of a garden, then it will start generating first pixel and then second pixel and then third pixel, and then it will create the whole, all of this pixel. And it will remember that when it's creating, it will remember that there was a pattern like this, which has been observed across this 1 petabyte of data. So maybe this garden with children playing around is one of the pattern, and it might start creating children playing around in a garden and so on and so forth. So just to give you a little bit of introduction about these generative models, perhaps because you may not know about it. But let me give a little bit about what is the context in terms of India here itself. And how does these generative models, and what are those generative models? There are a large number now. Of course, GPT-4 is well known now. Gemini has come from Google, but there are tons of them. There are hundreds of them right now. And users can insert prompts, put something there, which allows creation of text, images, videos, software, and so on, and it will generate code and so on. It will analyze text, and it can learn new paradigm by even teaching unknown tasks. So you can go on teaching it as if you are a teacher, and here is a question, here is answer, here is question, here is answer, and it will automatically now start generating your pattern in some fashion. So how does this, how can India play in this particular part here itself? Let's just understand how these models have been created. Large language models are special cases of this. So these generative models, there is, as I mentioned to you, it has got training part of it. It has to look at this 1 petabyte, 1 petabyte of
जैसे बनाना तो मेरे से कंसल्टेंट
1 petabyte of data, 10 to the power 15, and it has looked through every possible available online sources and even some offline sources. And so training this underlying, just like we talked about, that there are close to 100 billion potential neurons in our brain. There are a large number of neurons. The systems are huge, and the training takes months, if not more. And each of the trainings can take more than 10 million, $20 million in terms of data, in terms of the compute environment, in terms of energy. The amount of energy which is being used to train them is huge, and so on. But at the same time, once you do it training, then generation is very, very cheap. You can do it quickly, and you just put some input and it will give you output here itself. So if you think about it, creating of new LLM from scratch is really out of scope for most of the places, except for very few places. People are spending billions, not millions, but billions of dollars just to create such a system here itself. And that's not something which is that easy to reproduce. And of course, then new data will come in, you'll have to retrain it, new data will come in, you'll have to retrain it. So you can imagine that this will cost billions and billions of dollars multiplied several fold. So that, I think, from Indian perspective, I see is a very, very complex. Universities like Columbia and universities, even MITs and Caltech and Stanford, and I'm sure IITs, this would be beyond the scope in terms of spending billions of dollars on this kind of thing. But the other trend which is occurring is the most interesting one, which is that there is intense competition between players who are trying to capture the market. So OpenAI, GPT comes from them, Meta, which is nothing but Facebook, Mistral, Google, Anthropic. There are a number of large companies which have been working on this kind of thing here itself. So the advantage could be, if we want to think about edge for India, which is what I have been always thinking about in terms of how can India leapfrog uh, some of the some of the developing countries and developed countries, and how can it uplift masses of people, which India has, is a question. And in my perspective, the way to think about it is not to really try to develop all of these engines on our own, except for perhaps one or two maybe. But idea would be to basically take some of the existing ones. Some of them have become open source. So Meta Engine is open source, and number of others are open source. And they could be used and refined by what are known as fine tuning and by prompt engineering. I won't go into the detail and so on. So to me, democratizing all of this would be the way to deal with it, is to take one of the well-known such kind of generative artificial intelligence solution, and then ultimately trying to basically adopt and adapt those engines for our own use in whatever way we might want to do. So that, I think, seems to be one of the best strategies. Let me continue a little bit here in terms of what kind of application people are thinking about and what can be meaningful in terms of India here itself. So here is nothing but this artificial general intelligence and variety of applications which has been done. And I think the most important ones for perhaps India are, all of them are applicable possibly, but some of the more important ones are related to e-commerce, education, agriculture, transport, and healthcare. I think those are the most important thing. If India can concentrate on that, or Bharat can concentrate on that, then we have a chance of leapfrogging other nations and uplifting our masses of our people themselves. So having stated all this, let me mention now and go to some applications here. So I'm going to talk about two sets of applications. One is saving human lives, and the other one is about Jainism. So let me just start off here and mention a little bit. And these are applications I have personally worked on, and based on my own work and some of my students' work and some of my colleagues' work. So I appreciate all of their help in all of this. So it's very interesting. So if we think about uh, India, then I came across this really interesting article which actually measured outside government statistics. It measured in number of deaths and so on in terms of fatal accidents in occupational accidents. So there are 48,000 people who have fatality uh, per year, uh, and almost 1 out of 4 is in construction industry. Construction industry is one of the most dangerous industry, even in US, and terms of occupational accidents of various types. So the challenge, and here are maps, and you can see here in 3 years, threefold rise in death of construction workers in Maharashtra. This is 2021 or 2022 article. And so you can see after that what has happened since 2021 in 3 years. It has a threefold rise in deaths due to construction industry just in Maharashtra alone. And this is all national map of India in that context here itself. So the question is, can we reduce this in some meaningful manner? Now, it's not trivial to reduce it. So let me just show you one of the sites which I have actually looked at it personally, was a site in New York. Okay. Here is a big complex which is going on, and you can see all kinds of cranes and bulldozers and all kinds of other things, and large number of workers which are going to work here. It's early morning, so this picture was taken. And just looking at it, is there any obvious way that what is dangerous here? Because after all, workers are dying because some sort of danger exists, some sort of risk exists. So how can we think about in that particular way that what is the risk here itself? No, that's not trivial. And here is sort of an interesting pictures I took. And these are the sort of a picture, each of pictures have a risk of some sort. Now, if I was teaching this in a class, I would ask my students to guess what is the risk in each of the picture here. There are 4 pictures here. So, given that we are a virtual, I'm just going to answer. So many of the risks are related to ladders. So I'm going to answer only about 2 of those. And then you can think about other 2 here itself. But let me answer here in terms of right topmost thing. Here is a ladder. And what is wrong here? Well, it looks reasonably good, but it turns out it's too close to the ledge here. And so if there is slight amount of movement, then the worker is likely to fall and go down the ledge and may get killed. So that is one of the things. Here is another one, which is sort of where construction is going on, foundation is being built, and other things are being done. But there is no barricade around here. And there is a small trampoline here, but nothing more than that. And as you can see, that if there is a cave-in, all of this can fall, and workers which are working here would potentially be in serious accident, if not deadly situation. And this has happened many places. So I just wanted to just point out to you that this kind of thing are the kind of accidents we are talking about. And of course, there are many more of this type which exist all over. So is there any way to get some other handle on it? So one of the thing is that now cameras have become very, very cheap. And so I have been involved in some of the initiatives where we have put number of cameras at construction site, which can automatically look at the situation, and there are underlying algorithms which have been, which I have, we have built, and they seem to identify automatically what is risk. So here is an example here. So here is an example. This is nothing but a part here, and where people are digging below here in the ground, making some sort of entrance for plumbing and pipes and sewers and everything else. But this is not barricaded at all. And consequently, somebody can easily fall in there. So automatically the camera picks up. He says, well, there is a high risk here, risk of 0.8 out of 1, very, very highly risk. This is less so because you are closer here, and it would suggest you automatically, it will even create a report for you automatically, which will tell you whether you should barricade and what should you do, and so on. And not only that, it would also inform the people who are concerned about worker safety, that this is one of the places that something needs to be done. Here is another example. Here is a worker who is not wearing gloves and working on the saw, is electrical saw, and he can easily potentially get injured. He's not wearing a vest here, and consequently loose clothes might get caught into some of the construction sites and so on. So these are the kind of thing where we are talking about 12,000 accidents a year in construction industry in India alone, which is what? 40 per day, roughly around 40 per day is the kind of accidents we are talking about. So this is the kind of thing which is very, very critical. Here is another example of disaster recovery. Of course, with the global warming, we're having lots of disaster and they're going to go up. I was just listening just recently that if you look at a disaster, naturally occurring disaster, which are costing more than $1 billion, it turns out that it used to be around every 60 days before 2019. And now it has gone every 12 days. There is a disaster which is occurring where total amount of damage is more than $1 billion. And I'm just talking about overall in terms of United States alone. So you can imagine that this kind of thing is very critical. And what is worse is that how do you find survivors? How do you look for survivors? And what do you do? So we had some experiments which were done with drone flying and automatically identifying survivors in some fashion. So here's a river which was flooded and flooded has subsided, but people may be, survivors might be somewhere here, survivors might be somewhere here, and drone will automatically, the human being will not look at just a movie of drones, but automatically the algorithms, which are, and drones are very cheap. You can get a flying drone for maybe around $200, $300. And it will automatically identify, here is a survivor, and then go on from there. So this is one of the important thing which is there. Here is another example. So what is needed sometimes is that there is a disaster. Where is the disaster? Where is the most need? So here is an example of a major cyclone hitting this particular island here. And so here are the pictures which were taken before. Here are the pictures which were taken after. And you can see the difference. And you can see now where first responders need to reach and so on. So these are the kind of things which can be done in terms of images itself. So I just wanted to point out to you a little bit about saving human life. To me, is very, very critical, coming especially from my Jain principles and so on. So ahimsa, aparigraha, panakampara, all of those very important principles to me. So I've been always thinking about those kind of things. Let me move on a little bit about now Jainism. So we talk about all things related to Jains, and most of the Jain has got tremendous, really outstanding principles, which can actually make a positive impact in the world through nonviolence and other five things, which actually you had a melody, great melody you had, and you talked about all of them, including aparigraha and others. So it's really, really critical to spread that message in some fashion. But now, if you look at Bhagwan Mahavir's Vani, there is agams which were created by Gandhar, Gautam Swami, and others. They were all written in an ancient language called Prakrit. Prakrit was derived from Sanskrit, but it's much more simplified. So common people could talk in that language, and common people could understand it. Understanding. However, and that was really revolution by Bhagwan Mahavir and actually also Buddha in some fashion, where they could communicate with masses, not in this language of Sanskrit, which only priests and some scholars would only understand, but to masses. So that was all written in Prakrit. So there are many different dialects of Prakrit, and all Indian languages that I know of are all is derived from original Prakrit. Now, so here are some pictures of Prakrit. This is written as Prakrit, and this is nothing but Ashok Shila. But the scripts are nothing but Brahmi scripts, and they've been changed now to Devanagari script. Slowly, things went on changing. But if you look at original one, they were all in Brahmi script. Brahmi script got simplified and ultimately became Devanagari script. But here you can see the specific things here through Ashoka here itself. And our Agams, Samaisara, Kunda Swami, and all of those have been written in terms of Prakrit. All Pali is another, all Buddhist canons are in Pali here. Here is another one, which is from Odisha. Can you believe that? Here is nothing but Shila from Odisha at Hati Gompa Gufa in Odisha, which was all Jain inscription here. And this is Jain Shilak here. So the question is now, but those are not the languages we know anymore. What can we do? My feeling has been always that we need to not just expect that we have to learn necessarily all the Prakrit. It's not going to be possible for many people. And also we are going to forget about Jainether, non-Jains. And it's critical for message of principal message of Jainism to be communicated to the world and to the next generation. I mean, that's what Gandhis were created, and that's when Nelson Mandela was created, and that's where Martin Luther King was created. They were not Jains, but they got influenced by Jain principles of nonviolence. And even same thing is happening in Palestine and other places. So what could we do which would make sense to not have somebody just interpret in between, some scholar interpreting what was being said in Bhagwan Mahavir's Vani or other texts which we have, ancient texts, which are in Prakrit. So obviously natural things comes along. Is there any way to translate all of this? But now you can have, of course, scholars trying to translate it all. But then there are a large number of books, and we want to go beyond just a few books like Agams. So is there any way to translate all of this? So this is what in my lab at Columbia, we are doing it in terms of translation of ancient texts in some fashion. And so here is a system for some of you are technology geeks, if I may say. which I am also one of those. I just wanted to point out some architectural picture of it. And this is based on really this revolution which occurred only a few years back in artificial general intelligence or generative model, which are based on something called attention and transformers. I won't go into the details of those. Those are, who, if you're interested, you're more than welcome to take my lecture, and I'll be happy to tell you more. Or if you ever want to talk with me, I'm happy to be available. But I just wanted to point out to you that here is nothing but large number of texts which are there, and they need training. So we need original text, some of the texts which have been translated in English or Hindi, and then aligning those texts so that system can learn automatically what words mean, what sentences mean, what paragraph means, what gatha means, what sutra means. All of this needs to be understood by the system. But the only way it can understand is by training, where we have some initial, if I may call, to prime the pump. What we need is some initial number of text and their translation so that an alignment can be made and system can understand it. It's like just hypergraphic. There was this whole language of Egyptian and nobody could understand it until Napoleon's troop found Rosetta Stone. And Rosetta Stone had a original language in hyperglyph, whichever was spoken by Egyptians, and they had a Greek translations. And those are the ones which allowed, and then scholars worked on it for many, many, many years. And then they were able to align those, and they were finally able to translate some of those hyperglyphs in terms of modern languages. I mean, that's what is lacking in Mohenjo-daro. We have got written scripts, but we don't have any Rosetta Stone. So what we really need is to train this kind of system. We need is a Rosetta Stone, initial one, translation one, and few of those or many of those, and then it will go do better and better job as more training data is added, and it will be able to get you completely new translation of things which have not been done before. So here is some example here. I just some examples which have been done already. Here, these are all coming from Agam. So this is nothing but in original Prakrit. Here is nothing but Hindi translation. Kalo the Samudra Chakrawal Aat Logan Chauda hai. That's what it says here. And then the Black Sea is 8 lakh yojan. This is in English here itself. Same thing here. Parinam kya hai? Char prakar ka hai, and so on and so forth. Then you can see some of them is not perfect, because not actually far from perfect. I want to tell you that this is a research project. It's not done, but I just want to point out to you the amount of impact this can make in some meaningful manner. This is nothing but Timis Gufa aantu yojan se unchi hai. You can read it and you can see it, and so on and so forth. And so at least if not anything else, our hope is that if we are successful, which is where I would really need your help in terms of how to get more such literature where we have original text and translation, then we're hoping that at least 80% of these grunts, ancient texts which we have, can be translated in terms of English and Hindi. And ultimately, our expectation is if we can do this successfully, then we can do it to multitude languages, including Telugu, including Tamil, and Kannadi, and all of those kind of things. So it would depend, it would allow complete democratization of these languages, where a scholar doesn't have to sit down and translate it in Hindi or translate it in Gujarati or translate it in whatever language it is. And so I just wanted to point out that a tremendous amount of benefit this general artificial intelligence can bring in is just amazing here itself. Here is another one, actually a Buddhist monastery actually he sent me an email. Actually, a friend of mine, his son is American, and his son is actually a monk in Thailand. And so this Buddhist monastery sent me a whole bunch of Pali text, Pali's type of Prakrit. I just want to point out to you, it's another dialect of Prakrit, and wanted us to help them in terms of translating in some fashion. So this is nothing but, so I think that if we can do what we are doing, this could help in many places. Similar kind of canons exist in Sri Lanka and Myanmar and so on and so forth. So there is, and our expectation is this project would be completely open source. So whatever we produce would be completely open to the world, and whichever way they want to use it. Scholars may use it and refine it, do it better than we can do, and others can read it in their own languages. And the whole idea is just to pass on the principles and wisdom which exist in our ancient languages here itself. Let me just mention one more thing here. So it's not enough, in my opinion, just to translate, because how many times you're going to read, sit down and read 500-page book or 300-page book? So what we really want is not only translation, but some sort of question and answer system, which you can pose some questions and it will answer from those texts, from those things which you have seen here. So here is a system, again, we have built, still again research project, I want to point out to you, which would take advantage of large language models. It would take advantage of our translated stuff, and it would automatically, and then anybody can ask any specific questions. And this is something which is been functional. And actually, I will try to show you some demo if I can be successful. So here is an example who is Konika. According to Jain tradition, Konika was a staunch, devoted follower of Mahavira. What is aparigra? Aparigra is a realistic, practical, and rational principle with solid foundation of the social system and so on. We're not only, you can ask questions, but we are also measuring some sort of, ultimately, we are scientists. At least I am scientist, and I want to measure how good we are or how bad we are, because without that, we'll never be, we need a benchmark. How can we do better? And so here are nothing but we have a number of dimensions, faithfulness to the original one. Original meaning now human translated. So what we have is original, then human translated, and then our translation. To what extent they are similar, to what extent they are different, how relevant is your answer? Is this answering right question? Is this relevant or is this not relevant? All of those kind of measures are critical, and how good we are. So I want to tell you that we are still in learning stages. So we are probably at 3-year-old, 4-year-old kind of thing. So this is going to take multiple years. This is not going to happen in 1 year or, Siddhartha, come back in 6 months and produce everything. That's not going to happen. Now, obviously, we are at 2 or 3 years old, so we have a chance to go to 16, and we'll be able to show this, and anybody can use it the way they think is appropriate. Now, obviously, there are some people who would say that, oh, you should not expose this knowledge to everyone because they may misuse it. I think this is one of the big debate, which a number of people have actually told me. And I feel that democratizing, I mean, we are going to be, Bhagwan Vani was for everyone. Bhagwan never said, oh, you will, only my monk will get it, and nobody else will get it. That's not what Bhagwan said ever. Bhagwan Vani was for everyone. So who are we to say that, no, only some people can see and some people can interpret and other people will misinterpret? I feel extraordinarily uneasy about that kind of argument. I just want to point out to you. I hope you don't mind my pointing out, but I just want to show you now a little bit about a sort of a demo here. So this is something which I just will show you here. It is, so for example, who is Ashoka here? So then it will, so we downloaded around 1,700 English documents, and then we played it in terms of whether it can pick right kind of information. So Ashoka, the great emperor of northern India, was converted to faith of Buddha, and then it will pick up a document after document, first 3 documents, which are important ones. Who is Chandragupta? So then Chandragupta, first mention of Chandragupta is to be found in Mathura Fragmentary and his grandson, and so on and so forth. And he talks about Ashoka. And then who was the son of Ashoka? His name was Hagraput Gupta. Who is Konik? Konik is a historical figure in ancient India. During Konik is same as Ajat Shatru and Buddha and Mahavira. And then well, who was the father of Konik? The father of Konik was Shainik Raja. And now you may remember this story. I don't know you remember or not. Konik Konik mutinied against his father and actually went after, put him in, imprisoned him. Then due to influence of variety of Jain principles and so on, he decided that was the wrong thing to do. And he ran to the prison to try to release his father, Shainik Raja, who was in Bedi, who was in Bedi at that time. And Shainik Raja thought that he's coming to kill me. And I have to do something. I have to kill myself so that my son does not get this bad karma, due to killing his own father. So this is the story. This picked up a document and everything else. So you can see that these are the kind of questions people will ask. Or what is aparigra? What is other kind of things? It will ask those questions and it will answer them. And it will point out, not only answer them, it will point out which document it has, which agam it has. Here is another example. Let me just show you. Here is another example. Just 1 second. 1 second. So here is this translation I showed you here. So summarize a document. So it will summarize a document. Document describes the concept of quantity and types and so on and so forth. What is happy? And then it talks about happiness here, and eternal happiness, and so on. So I asked the question, what is happiness? The happiness referred to the text is eternal happiness, which is achieved by completely liberated from bondage of birth, old age, and death. So you can see these are the kind of questions which our next generation will not have necessarily known about it if they are, maybe if they're raised in Jain family with Jain tradition, which they're taught every day, they will know. But many of our Indian diaspora, which are all over the world, they may not know. And not forgetting about Indian diaspora, but all over the knowledge is not for Indian diaspora or only Jains, but it's for everyone. So these are so how are people going to learn? They can read a book, obviously that would be great. But if they want to still understand certain things, they can do now this Guru Shishya Samvad. So if you look at Srimad Rajchandra, he did such a terrific job. I mean, pranam to him, that this Atmasiddhi is, what is Atmasiddhi? Atmasiddhi is all about samvad between Guru and Shishya, and Guru trying to explain in some fashion Shishya. So this general artificial intelligence is getting to the stage where it will be able to pick up things from documents and automatically answer and become almost a teacher in some fashion. This is where I think it's a great potential in terms of education, even for India and so on. So with that, I'm going to stop now. I talked for a long time, but I hope you have seen at least what can be done in Jainism, what can be done in context of India, saving human lives, and so on. And I'm happy to answer any question. Mr. Moderator, with it, please take over. And if there is anything I can do, I'm going to unshare my screen. And or would you like me to keep my screen on? You tell me now with that.
No, I think you can stop sharing your screen. It would be, I think, better.
Okay, fine. Great.
This
So thank you so much. And feel free to ask any questions, or after all, even audience can ask questions.
Absolutely. So if the audience does have any questions, we'll be happy to cater to them. You can put them in the chat box. So I myself have a couple of questions which I
Yes.
would like to ask. So in all the work that you have done across artificial intelligence, I'm curious about how you perceive its connection with the Jain principles like non-violence and truth.
I mean, I'm governed by those principles. I just want to tell you that I truly have adopted those principles to the extent still being in the samsara. So I want to tell you that that is true. I think there are challenges. I don't want to tell you that there are no challenges. General artificial intelligence as it exists today, what we are doing through generative models, picks up knowledge from documents. So there are two things which can go wrong. Some of the documents themselves might be wrong documents. So then it is possible that it may not be correct one. But now if you start summarizing all of them, presumably those outliers can be removed. Those are called guardrails. So we are trying to, that's not my personal topic of research, but there is a lot of work going on in terms of creating guardrails of removing documents, removing certain kind of answers, like how to make a nuclear bomb, or how to make a bomb. So those are the kind of things which are being done, removing those documents in some fashion. And then there's actually a major project I'm getting involved in to some extent, which would look at that. And second is there is this whole issue where it's just generating. Remember, it's generating. It doesn't, it just is sort of generating up one word after other. So it can go wrong direction. And if it goes wrong direction, then it will go on generating something which may not be correct at all. That's called hallucination. So there are some challenges. And I think that those are not going to be solved in 6 months kind of thing, but we are talking about in 5 to 7 years, it will have tremendous potential to solve those. So Satya is very, very critical. And Ahimsa is, I think, where we are trying to democratize this knowledge about Jainism and other ancient religions from India, Hinduism, and even Buddhism, whatever, ancient knowledge from India. And that would, I think, to the extent that democratizing of that knowledge will help, that would be really fantastic. I truly believe that that has a potential. I've seen how Gandhiji was influenced and how others were influenced because of him. And none of them were Jains. So I feel that those are the things, but the only way they were influenced by reading, by interacting, by learning, and so on and so forth. So that's what is the first step I shouldn't say we alone, but at least we are going in that direction. Does it answer your question? Sorry, Vidyaji.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to Dr. Siddhartha Dalal for sharing his insights and inspiring us to explore the integration of AI into our daily lives. A big thank you goes out to all of you, our audience, for joining us today. I also want to quickly inform you that today's session will be available on the Jain Foundation's YouTube channel within the next 2 days. You can share the video with others or watch it again. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you want to become a member of the Jain Foundation, please join our WhatsApp group. You can find the link in the chat box or contact the admin number. Lastly, please share your thoughts, suggestions, and feedback using the feedback form shared with today's invitation message. With that, it's time to conclude the session. Once again, thank you, Dr. Siddhartha Dalal, and to all of you. We'll see you in the next talk. Jai Jinendra and good morning.
Yeah, Pranam and Jai Jinendra.
Janendra, thank you so much.